Yeah, I've been, learning about climate change for quite a while. But in 2019, what I saw was amazing to me, which is that the interest in solving the problem, particularly by young people and not just one party or the other, the interest level is very, very high. And I was considering publishing the book in 2020, but then as the pandemic was developing, uh, the work of the Gates Foundation on the vaccines and other tools meant that that wasn't going to be a good year. The world appropriately wanted to see the pandemic as the top priority. But there's three ingredients to solve climate. One is you have to have the right goal, and I'm impressed everyone's picked this goal of zero by 2050. You have to have the interest level because we need voters to drive policies because government plays such a central role. But then finally, you need a plan. And I thought, based on my experience at Microsoft and the foundation, thinking about innovation, which is harder in the climate space than any space I've ever worked in. It's more capital, just the physical scale is kind of mind blowing. I thought, hey, helping to put a plan together and describe some of the work I'm doing to contribute to that plan, it would be very timely as we come out of the pandemic and we have Europe spending recovery money, the US looking at lots of recovery money. How do we make sure that we go full speed on solving climate and really make sure people understand it's not going to be easy. It's going to be actually very, very hard, but also make it clear that it's not impossible. It really is within reach.
Well, you also write about in the book that it's important not to just go after what you term the low-hanging fruit. And the low-hanging fruit, I assume, is electric vehicles, solar panels, things that are important, but not when you look at the whole pie of all the things that contribute to the 51 billion tons of CO2 in the atmosphere every year. And in fact, can you just talk about what makes up, all of the emissions?
Yeah, if there's one takeaway from the book that I want to have people remember, it's that we have lots of sources of emissions. In fact, I've got a slide that I think could help make this point. It is passenger cars because transportation, is a big thing, but that's only about 7%. It is electricity generation overall, but that's about 27%. And you have other things in transportation like planes, but then you have the three other sectors that people may not associate with solving this problem. You've got agriculture, where you have livestock and fertilizer manufacture and animal manure handling, and that's 19%. And you've got heating and cooling buildings, which we mostly use natural gas for that. That's 7%. And then the biggest single sector is actually manufacturing at 31%. And that's where you've got cement. That's where you've got steel. Those are the two biggest. But it's pretty broad. We make a lot of physical stuff. And if you look around, and you see the plastic, the paper, the wallboard, the cement and steel that makes the building stand up, every physical thing, sadly, is associated with some level of emissions, and we have to rework the way that we make those things.
To me, that is the most kind of eye-opening thing that comes across in the book, and it's hard for me to still wrap my mind around it. You talk about the room you're sitting in. People who are watching right now, maybe they're at home, they're watching on a computer screen. The plastic that their computer is made out of, the wood that their desk is made out of, how it was cut. The machines probably use gas to run. The cement in the building they live in, the steel the building is made out of. Every aspect of what you see needs to have innovation, needs to change the way we make it, right?
That's right. You know, the physical economy has gotten all these things to be so cheap that, you know, most people have never been to a cement plant or a steel plant. They, you know, the fact that there were, you know, brilliant innovators that drove those things, you know, and it's incredible. And you know, the recipe for how we make those things is kind of fixed because we know it's reliable and cheap. And so to be open-minded to say, no, we need to change those building codes. We need to build a market for something that at first, you know, green steel costs a lot more than normal steel. Green cement costs almost 3 times what normal cement costs. And so how do you get going? How do you get on that learning curve where you start to buy some, and the more you make, you figure out, just like happened with solar panels, that volume drove the price down as companies competed to make it at lower price. When you don't have a market, that doesn't happen. And so bootstrapping across all those areas of emissions, that we drive the R&D, we drive the innovators, but then as they come up with things, we have buying that gets us on that scale up learning curve to get the price way down and get a green premium that's either very, very small or near zero. That's the path to nirvana.
I want to go over the course of this. I want to go to some of the details on things like cement, because it's something, you know, I never really thought much about, but the scale of the problem does seem at times insurmountable. But can you just talk kind of broad picture first? What are you doing about climate change?
Yeah, so given the innovation agenda, there's policy things for all of it. You know, funding basic R&D, and R&D budgets in these areas had not gone up as we got to the 2015 climate talks, and so that kind of got on the agenda there, and it's still, there's a lot that has to be done. So lots of things about policy, but there's kind of a pipeline for innovation. In fact, this is another one where I've got a slide that I use to describe it that might be helpful. You know, way at the beginning, it's just basic R&D. It's like, you know, the National Institute of Health working on biological things. Then we want to bring in smart people and fund them even before their ideas are they can raise money on a private basis. So we have a thing where we're bringing smart people together called fellows, early stage. Then something can be venture funded. So that's Breakthrough Energy Ventures that we put together several funds, and that's going super well. And then finally is this piece about buying the products, which we call Catalyst. And that, together with these market shaping policies, you know, can get to where, at least for some of the categories, like passenger cars, over the next 10 to 15 years, as the range goes up, the charging stations are pervasive, the charge time, you know, goes down to be like filling a gas tank, you know, then you can get a zero green premium. But that one is the most mature of all the sectors. So we have to apply this pipeline across all those different areas of emissions. And I'm working on advocacy, but specifically fellows, the venture fund, and Catalyst to accelerate that pipeline. And you can see it over time. Well, I hope what that means is that green premium, which is over $5 trillion a year right now, goes down by about 95%.
I just want to break down this chart a little bit because I'm confused by charts always, so it takes me a moment. But for folks at home or who are watching, Breakthrough Energy Ventures is an investment fund that you started about, I think it was 6 years ago. You recruited a bunch of super wealthy people who everybody would know their names, and I think you raised $1 billion. I think now there's a second $1 billion that you've raised, and you're looking for not just some quick way to make money. You are looking for people who are willing to invest long range, because a lot of it, like hedge funds and stuff, they invest for 5 years and then they all want their money back and their huge returns. You're saying for real development, for real innovation, you need a 20-year investment maybe in some things with no guarantee, frankly, that it's going to work.
Right. So the most mature part of this in terms of what I'm doing is Breakthrough Energy Ventures. And it's exactly as you say, we're just announced the second fund, and that's going well. We found lots of amazing companies that if their work is successful, can eliminate 0.5% of the 51 billion tons of emissions. And so we need, companies in steel and cement and other things. Because that ventures piece has gone so well, and they've been able to work with other investors to raise that money, we're putting a thing at the earlier stage, fellows, where we just, fund people at $250,000 a year to shape their ideas coming out of big companies or academia. And then we're putting something that is after ventures, which is the catalyst buying piece. So those two pieces I'm just putting together this year to complement the ventures piece because it's gone so well.
And just so people know, the green premium that's on that chart, which starts out obviously higher on the left-hand side and then gradually gets smaller. Just explain, green premium is the extra cost making it making it with zero carbon emissions, adds on to the price of the development, the price of the actual product. And you want that green premium to go down, just like solar plant panels used to be far more expensive because more innovation is taking place, more people are using them. The price actually goes down and the quality actually goes up. That's what needs to happen in basically everything related to carbon emissions, all products, right?
Exactly. So the green premium is very different for different products. And I promise you I only have this, maybe my last slide, but I love slides.
I love that you travel with slides.
You bet. PowerPoint, that's my favorite. So for passenger cars, where Tesla and others have done a brilliant job, and you even have people like GM saying as of 2035, they're only going to make electric cars. So that clearly shows that they think that the demand in the market will shift over. Today, you pay more upfront for an electric car, and you have to worry a little bit about the range and where you're going to do the charging. But as the batteries get better, those prices go down. We'll go from what is a fairly small green premium today. I show on this slide, I'm comparing a Chevrolet Malibu to a Chevrolet Bolt, which is an electric vehicle. And I show about a 15% green premium there. That's as of today, but I expect in the next 10 to 15 years, actually the electric car would be preferable. So that's amazing. Eventually you won't have to have tax credits and zero emission requirements. On the other side of the slide, though, I show a product that we haven't made progress on, which is cement. And there you see that today's cement's $125 a ton. And yet if you try and make it in a green way, it basically doubles the price. And so that's one where we're not, we don't have a Tesla of cement. It's not clear, where that will come from. But we have to drive for that because cement is responsible just by itself for 6% of all those emissions. So if you want to get to zero, you can't skip cement.
And what the thing that's fascinating to me about cement, which is a sentence I never thought I would actually say, is that, which I read in your book, is that if you make a ton of cement, you release a ton of CO2. I mean, it's a 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, it's incredible that between heating up the limestone, where you're generally burning hydrocarbon like natural gas, and the chemical reaction where you're pulling that calcium out, it's actually CO2 that gets released. And so you have those two sources. And cement is very, very cheap. And the number of cement plants in the world is, over 10,000. And so we're asking every one of those to put some new equipment in. There's a little bit of progress. There's a company, CarbonCure, that cuts it by 10%.
The company Breakthrough Energy Ventures has invested in, right?
Exactly. So that's a start. But wow, we have to get to 100%, and that it's not even clear how to go about that. But we have lots of people with great ideas, and if we back them and give them policies, and even when the premium is still non-zero, we create some demand for them to scale up, then we can get the same thing to happen there that happened with the electrified passenger car.